Sorry.
Yes, present. Now we are at item 2, public comment and oral communication for items not on the agenda. And I don't see any hands up. So I'm assuming there are none. 3, 2, 1. All right, is no public comment. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items: approve the minutes of March 24th, 2025, approve disbursements for April 28th, 2025, and monthly revenue and expense report for period ending March 31.
I thought they were fine. I support all of them. I would like to request that the minutes have a few more paragraphs. It's one long paragraph. And I think it would be easier to read if it was broken into. That is just a minor formatting issue.
Cosmetic changes.
Yes, you can take a look. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to regular business. First item is reestablish Board Operations Committee and Finance Committee as standing committees of the Authority Board and set time and place for regular meetings of Authority Board and standing committees, the adoption of Resolution 01-2025.
So in 2016, the board identified the need for new ad hoc committees, that is the Board Operations Committee and the Finance Committee. And the first meeting of this year, that was in January, we established the members of these committees. So although the date and time was tentatively decided, the board decided that after the first meeting takes place, let the board members agree upon a particular frequency and time when they should be meeting. And we can bring it back to the board and memorialize it. So that's why it's been brought back to the board, and also we'd like to adopt a resolution for this. So the Board Operations Committee decided that we would meet every other month on the second Wednesday of every other month at 1 p.m. Just to recap, the Board Operations Committee consists of Director Ruddock, Director Marsh, and Director Slater-Carter. The Finance Committee decided that we meet on the third Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. And the committee members are Director Nagangas, Director Slater-Carter, and Director Guy. So here we are, and if there are any questions, staff is here to answer, as well as General Counsel Jeremy, I believe he's got his hand up.
Yep. Just one quick clarification. I think, Kishan, you may have misspoke. I think you said you call them ad hoc committees. They are not ad hocs. They are standing committees. Just for the record. That's all.
Okay.
And I know we've got the Finance Committee. That's self-explanatory. What is the anticipated course of action and decisions for the Operations Committee?
The Board Operations Committee has been doing what's been doing in the past, which is basically evaluating the policies and for adopting it. They recommend it to the SAM board for adopting policies. They also assist with the board with the general managers, relationship, planning, policy development, evaluation of the general manager, and issues pertaining to daily operations where additional interfaces are required. And that's why the board felt that it should first be discussed at the Board Ops Committee and thereafter bring it to the board later on for discussion or for adoption.
Just a clarification for the board. So with standing committees, you have a place established regular standing meetings with kind of a regularly set types of topics to be discussed. But if there aren't enough things to talk about, you can always cancel the meetings. And you can also, if there's more things to talk about than could be addressed in a regular meeting, you can always call special meetings. So it's just, if you have somebody that's recurrent enough, it's always a good idea to just establish a regular schedule.
And do we have any, I don't see any hands up. Do we have any comments from other members of the board?
These are public meetings.
There's standing
Yes.
committees.
The public meeting, they noticed and then recorded and minutes are being made and it's approved in the following meetings.
People can attend remotely.
The public, you mean? Yes, that's why it's noticed and we have a Zoom link.
Good. Thank you.
You're not required to, but you certainly can.
It's good.
Well, I guess I'll move approval of the resolution. While establishing the Board Operations Committee and the Finance Committee as standing committees
I'll second.
as included in the agenda.
Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor, say
Can
aye.
we do that or do we have to roll call?
Oh, it's a resolution?
Is it a resolution?
It's a resolution.
Yeah, if you approve the resolution would be the board action.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Director Megan West?
Yes.
Director Bowles?
Yes.
Director Boyd? Yes. Director Penrose?
Yes.
Director Guy?
Yes.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along then. To, let me go to the agenda. The next item is also, come on. Should have printed this. Is item B, presentation of the first flush report by the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District.
And so First Flush is an annual community science program that monitors pollutants entering the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Now, we've been doing this every year and First Flush actually has volunteers who do the sampling of the creek and stormwater outfalls. So last year, that always happens at the first rain, which provides a snapshot of once a year worst case scenario. So last year we did it on November 11th, 2024. 7 volunteers sampled the creeks and stormwater outfalls at 16 sites between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay after about 0.22 inches of rainfall. So samples were analyzed and the findings will be presented by the by RCD person. I believe he is there. Yeah, Clinton.
Hi, yeah. I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Clinton. So you can go ahead with your presentation. I've given you control to share your screen.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I will toss that up. Let me know if you can all see that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's partly
Okay,
blocked.
great. Yeah, I had hoped to be there in person today to meet all of you in person. We had some changes of plans on our end, so I appreciate you all seeing me on Zoom. My name is Clifton Herman. I am the water quality specialist over at the San Mateo RCD. And today I'm going to be talking to you all about our results from the First Flush program, as Kishan said. We're going to be covering years 2023 and 2024. As I mentioned, I'm a water quality specialist with the RCD. A little background on myself. I am a marine biologist by training. I studied at UC Santa Cruz and CSU Monterey Bay. And I've worked in government positions, both state government positions, but also local county positions. I've worked in private consulting, a little bit of academia, and I've been with the RCD since June of last year. So a little under a year, but I'm loving it so far. I am going to just hop right in. Let's see if I can get my tech going. All right, there we go. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the Resource Conservation District, but just in case, we are a non-regulatory special district that's been in San Mateo County for 85 years. We provide diverse services to protect natural resources and serve as a local hub for conservation. Our current priorities programmatic priorities are here on the screen. We have wildlife, water, climate, agriculture, and forest health and fire resiliency. And today we're going to be talking about our First Flush program, which is within our water quality section of things that we do. So what is it? First Flush can be thought of as a concept, but it's also a program. So as a concept, First Flush is really just the first big rain of the year, when contaminants that have built up on the land during the dry season all get washed out into waterways in the ocean. So we like to think of it as them getting flushed out. As a program, it's a volunteer water quality monitoring program. It has been occurring in San Mateo County since year 2000, so it's a very long-running program. The sampling occurs once annually, and we like to think of this as our worst-case water quality, stormwater quality scenario, because all of these contaminants been on the land for a while, the whole summer. It's a long period of time for things to accumulate, and then they're all kind of getting washed out. It's always possible that it's not the worst day of the year, but in most cases it really kind of is. And so the RCD coordinates efforts in San Mateo County for the First Flush program as part of an overall multi-county effort. So this program in the larger umbrella is managed by the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. We partner with them for that. And it occurs there in Monterey County. And it did occur in Santa Cruz County for a while, but has not been happening for the last couple of years. We really want to get it back online if we can. So why do this? There are a lot of different types of water quality monitoring, as I'm sure you're all aware, being involved with SAM, that are designed for specific goals or different goals. So First Flush in particular gives us an overview that tells us when, where, and how much of primary pollutants are on our coast. And this program is important because this gives us this big picture understanding that lets us know where the issues are or aren't. And I think that that's a finding that can be just as important, right? If we're seeing that there isn't something that might be a bad thing if we had seen. So in short, First Flush tells us when, where, and how much pollution there is in a sort of a big picture sense on the coast. But it might not tell us exactly why. And so, if we wanted to say why there's a certain pollutant or why we're seeing something, we might design our study a little differently. And I would be remiss if I did not mention our dedicated volunteers that make this program happen. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes we're going out in the middle of the night. Inevitably, sometimes it's on Thanksgiving Day or Halloween night or something, because that's just how things work out. But it's a really fun event to go out there with the volunteers. I think, we try to prioritize folks learning something when they participate with us in this program. And obviously, we're also sharing this information out with the community. So what do we test for in the First Flush program? Our water quality parameters that we test for are fecal indicator bacteria. We test for nutrients, also metals, and total suspended solids. And on the right here, you can see, can you all see my cursor when I move it around?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So on the right here, we have our map of our 16 sites that we sample in this program. It might be a little small for you, but up at the top, we have San Pedro Creek mouth, right by the infamous Taco Bell. Going all the way down, we have a big cluster of sites in Princeton by the Sea, sites that discharge to the harbor. And then all the way down to our furthest south site, which is right along Kelly Avenue in Half Moon Bay, just below the Pilarcitos Creek watershed. So I'm going to be going through each of our pollutants, and then I'll show you some results from each of them. So our first category of pollutants is the fecal indicator bacteria. In the First Flush program, we test for E. coli and Enterococcus. The scientific guidelines for indicator bacteria testing say to look at E. coli in freshwater. But once E. coli get to the ocean, they can start to die off because they don't do well with salt water. So that's why we also test for Enterococcus, because that bacteria is recommended to be tested for in ocean waters. Especially since we're looking at the nexus of, freshwater and saltwater, we test for both. These bacteria can originate from, or they do originate in the guts of warm-blooded animals. And so for that reason, they can sort of indicate the presence of other pathogens that might be associated with fecal matter. And so this is a concern for human health in our communities. So here's our first figure, a little bit. We have 2023 on the left, and you're going to see this structure in several of our slides, and 2024 on the right. This first one is for E. coli. And I want you, this might be a little small for you, but there's this red dotted line here. And that line shows we call it a water quality objective. So really what that means is anything above that line indicates that the water quality is impaired, and anything below that line means that, we're good to go. So as we would expect with the First Flush program, as I mentioned, we kind of think of this as our worst case scenario. We did have some high levels of bacteria, and this is nothing new. This is what we would expect in any community. It happens in Monterey, in Santa Cruz, down in Morro Bay, San Diego. This is a coast-wide issue, really everywhere. And really that's kind of why we have the First Flush program, to learn about this. But so in 2023, we can see that all of our E. coli concentrations at our 16 sites were above this red line. So, indicating an impairment for water quality. In 2024, we had 2 sites that were actually within our recommended levels, which is a good thing. It's really kind of rare that we see this happening during the First Flush event. Those 2 sites that were within those recommended levels in 2024 were Martini Creek Mouth and the Inner Harbor parking outfall. There's an outfall along the Inner Harbor parking lot that drains into the Inner Harbor. Another thing that I'll note, just to orient you to these figures, is that they're all going to be north to south. So north on the left is our San Pedro Creek Mouth site, and then our Kelly Outfall site is our farthest south on the right-hand side. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is our Enterococcus. So that's the other bacteria that we test for in the program. On the left here in 2023, you see a lot of them are right around this top line. And this might be small for you, but I have a gray sort of dotted line here. This is actually the maximum concentration that our lab tests are able to actually quantify the bacteria. And so it's really probably safe to assume that anything that's at this upper line is likely above that. And that is, quite a bit higher than safe swimming levels. In 2024, we still had a few sites that were at this upper limit, but we also have several that are, within the measurable range. So that is less than we saw in 2023, which we like to see. And I'm happy to take questions at the end. If anybody has burning questions, or you think you might lose it, feel free to just hop out and I can take that. But our next pollutant group is going to be our total suspended solids. This is essentially how much dirt there is in the water. The potential sources for this, it could be a lot of things, but construction, erosion, natural or otherwise, agricultural runoff, fires. Fires are a big one for our First Flush program, because oftentimes fires, are occurring in the summer months. And if there were to be a fire, we would definitely be interested in seeing what's coming down during that first big rain event. And the impacts of total suspended solids, especially when they're really high, can include water column visibility. So, disorienting for fish. And then also aquatic organism respiration. So, clams and other types of organisms like them filter the water to eat and also to breathe. And so if there's a lot of sediment in the water, that can really mess them up. Another thing with suspended solids is they can actually carry pollutants with them. So they can sort of chemically bind to pollutants as the water travels over the land, and they can actually pick things up as it moves. So our total suspended solids results in 2023 were a little bit interesting. We had a pretty big spike at Montera Creek. The majority of our sites here are creek mouths or outfalls. They're like on the beach. This is our one like creek site. It's a little bit further up in the Montera Creek watershed. So we had really high levels of TSS in 2023, but we were glad to see in 2024 they were back down to low levels. So that's this one here, and then this one here in 2024. And there's an interesting pattern that correlates with some of the other pollutants that I'll get into shortly. Our next group of pollutants is our metals. So in the First Flush program, we test for copper, lead, and zinc. Potential sources for these include gutters, roofs, brake dust, industrial waste, paint, fire, treated lumber, things like that. And these are a concern for human and ecological health. So we have an interest in metals for those reasons. And our first one is copper. And so you can see here, this is our Montera Creek site where we had that high amount of total suspended solids in 2023. And then in 2024, it was really low levels because, we saw that suspended solids go down. And so that's an interesting correlation that we had there. One of the interesting kind of nuances of evaluating stormwater data like this is that we have other trends happening at the same time. So other things might not be as correlated to a sediment event like we saw with Montera Creek. In 2023 here, this is West Point Avenue outfall and Vassar drainage. So both of these sites are in Princeton by the Sea, kind of on the further west side of town, and they both drain into the outer harbor. You can see that while Montera had high levels and then dropped down, these sites kind of have high levels in both years. For lead in 2023, we had 3 sites that exceeded our objective here. So this is, again, our red line is anything above that is not good. Anything below that is where we're supposed to be. And so this is quite rare. We don't often see exceedances or high levels of lead in this program. I think there's only been a couple times in the program's history. So having 3 in 2023 was a little bit alarming. And we were glad to see them drop down in 2024. Zinc is our last metal here. Here we'll see the same trend with Montera Creek site. We had this big spike, and in 2024, it was much lower. I'd also like to point out that this red line here is the same for both of these figures, but we have a different scale. So, this level this is 1,000 up here. So it was a high concentration in 2023 of zinc. And then in 2024, everything was back to good levels, except for our one site at West Point Ditch. So again, this is on the west side of Princeton by the Sea, draining to the outer harbor. Our last group of pollutants that we're going to talk about today are nutrients. First Flush program, we test for nitrate and orthophosphate. These can come from fertilizers, pesticides, detergents, things like that. And they're a concern for ecosystem health. So high levels of nutrients can cause algae blooms and sometimes fish die-offs as well. And that's what I have a picture of here on the right-hand side. So in 2023, all of our sites were within recommended levels, so well below this red line. In 2024, we did have one site exceed that red line. It was our West Point Ditch site again. But I think it's important to note that the nitrate is where we see a big difference between San Mateo County and some of the other counties. We really don't seem to have an issue with nitrate here. We did have this one site in 2024, but things have historically looked really good in the nitrate category. So yeah, that's a really good thing. And it's something that the First Flush program specifically has shown us over the years. We're able to look at this data and say, oh, wow, we really do have low nitrate concentrations compared to some other counties. Orthophosphate We had a few high levels. 2023, it was our West Point Avenue ditch site was our highest. We also had some high levels again at that Montera Creek site. 2024, we can see that it was actually not detected at all at Montera Creek, but we still had high levels of orthophosphate in a few other places. Again, we have it at the West Point ditch site and our Vassar outfall site, which is the next block over. And then we have it showing up in a few of our more southern sites, so more towards Halfman Bay. So those are the things that the findings that we're sharing with you that we've found through this program in the last couple of years. I just have a little summary here. So for bacteria, we had all of the sites above the limit in 2023 and all but 2 in 2024. For suspended solids, we have 1 site above the limit in 2023, which was, as I mentioned, correlated with metals and orthophosphate concentrations that were high in 2023, but then not in 2024. For copper, we had 4 sites above the limit in 23 and 4 in 24. Zinc, 3 sites above the limit in 23 and only 1 in 24. Lead, 3 sites above the limit in 23 and none in 24. Nitrate, we were within the recommended levels last year, and this year we had 1 site that had high levels. And then orthophosphate, we had 6 sites above levels last year, and then 5 above levels this year. I think our big finding from 2024, especially looking at both years, is that West Point ditch at the end of West Point Avenue site had high metals and orthophosphates in 2023, and it had numerous pollutants that were above good limits in 2024. So that was kind of our big site that stood out as we were looking at these. And so there's plenty to talk about here, but I think I'm going to wrap things up so we can turn to questions. But before that, I'd like to give a little shameless plug. If anybody here is interested in participating in the First Flush program, we have a couple QR codes that you can scan here. I will also, if there's a chat, I can drop links in the chat to our sign-up forms. The left one is First Flush program. And on the right, it's sort of our summer equivalent of First Flush. It's called Snapshot Day. It's very similar, but it happens, you don't have to be in the rain for it. And so that's occurring on July 12th of this year. And with that, I got my last slide. So on this slide, we have my contact info, as well as a few places where you can follow the RCD if you're interested. And it also acknowledges the funders for this program, which of course includes Sewer Authority Midcoastside. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
And I've joined as well, Kellex from the RCD.
Yeah, hey, Kellex is here as well, our executive director.
Scott?
Yeah, so you've got about, 25 years of, or when did we start? Was it 2000 or 2005?
I believe it was 2000. Our sites were a little bit different going all the way back, so we don't have that 25 years at all of our sites, but we do have it for many of them.
Yeah, you showed us some year over year. Do you notice anything interesting in the trends?
The trends? Yeah, I do have a couple like back pocket slides. The trends figures at this point are a little messy, but I can throw this one up. This goes back to 2015. Before that, there were kind of fewer sites, so I kind of chose to start it at 2015. These are our bacteria results, and so it's a little messy to look at. But what you can kind of see on the left here, this is our E. coli. This was the one where we had 2 sites within our recommended levels this year, and I think this figure does a good job of really showing how rare it is for these sites to be at low levels. But this blue line here was San Vicente Creek. So we had San Vicente Creek within recommended levels for 2 years in 2021 and 2022. And then our Montera Creek site that I talked a lot about today was within recommended levels for E. coli in 2022. Enterococcus, it's even more rare. We've only had 1 time where it has been below our red line here. And this was Pilarcitos Creek mouth in 2019. So we are looking at these. here's TSS. This is that big spike that we had last year at Montera Creek, but everything else is low. And then I think I have nutrients, and here I was talking about how nitrate is historically low in our county, and this is this is our nitrate figure here. So this red line is our water quality goal to have things below, and for the most part, it stays below. So we are always looking at trends. Those have been included in the full report, which is in the board package. And you're more than welcome to look through those. And I'm available for questions as well, if you ever wanted to follow up about anything.
Thank you.
Barbara?
Yeah.
And then Deborah.
First, I want to say thank you. It's very timely. I have to do a docent walk next week for 8th graders at Fitzgerald, and they want to know potential pollutants in the streets. But they're there, and I'm like, oh, look at this. I can show them graphs. So
that's great.
I do have a couple questions. One is West Point Ave the one that comes through the ponds at Pillar Point? It's the one that comes through and comes out at just west of West Point Avenue. Is that what we're talking about?
So like this right here is, I think, our Vassar Avenue site. So this is right by the yacht club. It's right. One block further west of that.
So it is what goes through those ponds
and the swamp.
And the swamp. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it is the closest site to that marsh that's just west of there.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. And then just one last question, which is a few years ago, I think the RC took a look at the sources of the E. coli. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. I remember my memory of hearing that presentation is that it was not really human E. coli. It was a mix of other sources, but I'd be interested if you can recap that for us, because I think that is an interesting part of looking at this.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at fecal indicator bacteria at several sites up and down the coast. I think Helix, since I've been here just about a year, I think Helix might have a better
sure.
context on that one. Yeah,
I'd be happy to hop in on that. I was also going to kind of reflect, since Barbara, you said you're going to be taking school children out, and didn't catch who that was just before who asked about trends. I wanted to reflect also that one of the things that interests me is where there is so much focus and attention, regulatory or otherwise, is not necessarily where you see the biggest issues. So San Vicente Creek is a good example of a place where we see a lot of focus, a lot of concern about the reserve and that sort of thing. But San Vicente Creek is one of the only places where we've seen a couple times recently where that didn't surpass water quality pollution concern thresholds. So I just think that's kind of interesting. And so what Barbara's referencing with the source is we did something called microbial source tracking, which is genetically testing the DNA of some of the bacteria to see what animal they came from originally. And so when we did that in the harbor, that particular study, and that's also now been done in a couple of other places, some of the creeks and stuff on the coast. At that time, when we did the harbor study, we couldn't rule anything out, but we also didn't rule anything in. What we found was that there wasn't a smoking gun, that there wasn't any like clear signal for like human being the problem, or any particular thing. One of the things that we've spent a lot of time talking about with some of the agency folks, like the water board folks, et cetera, is what might be background bacteria from wildlife versus what might be things that are controllable. And that's kind of part of what we're starting to figure out now. One of the key next steps for us is we're going to be in this upcoming year, we're going to be pulling together, going across all these different data sets on the coast. We're going to be pulling together our sort of like state of the coast report, because there's some things that Surfrider has done. There's some things that the county has done. We do First Flush. We've done a few other things. And we'd be really interested in looking across all of those data sets and across different times and answering kind of the questions that people really generally want to know, which is just like big picture. How are we doing? How's the water quality? What are the concerns? Is it okay? What should we do about it? Who's doing something about it? And that's also something that we want to address somewhat in this upcoming webinar that we're doing in partnership with Coastside Land Trust. That's on May 10th, if anybody wants to join that. So at that point, we'll be talking more broadly than First Flush.
I heard that you were also doing a study a while ago about dog poop and the fact that that's a factor in this, potentially a major factor in the E. coli.
You know, we actually haven't found it to be a major factor. We have found it to be a factor. There are certain times or locations that it is, but honestly, fecal indicator bacteria is very complex and messy, pun intended. And so there are probably some locations or sometimes that's a bigger issue than others. But for example, with the harbor study that we did, we found that we did not find that that dogs were a primary contributing factor. And I think there are some places where maybe it's a bigger deal than others. But then also the concern with fecal indicator bacteria isn't so much an environmental thing like, harming marine invertebrates like wildlife. It's more that they're an indication of the possibility of a pathogen. And the concern about it is typically that pathogen might be harmful to human health if people are swimming in those waters, like recreational contact. And so then there's also questions about like epidemiological questions about how much of a risk is dog, because we're less likely to get sick from a virus that a dog has than we are to get sick from a virus that a human has, which is part of the reason that typically when you're addressing FIB, human waste is a really high priority because it's more of a concern for human health. So it's really a lot of different like data sets that you're kind of pulling together to tell the story. Unlike things like metals, where it's like presence, absence, like the metal is there, it's this much, you know how much the risk is. FIB isn't quite that direct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alex, this is for you really.
Okay.
I know
Clifton,
RCD.
do you mind stopping sharing the screen?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know RCD does more than just collect data. I think this is a very important and a really wonderful part of what you do. I guess my question is, so we got the data, so what? What do you do with data? Is it RCD that's handling further investigation or regulatory constraints, or is the information that you gather being given off to other agencies for them to do something?
Yeah, well, we're doing things like this so that everybody can do things to make water clean. I think one of the things that people sometimes undervalue is how important it is when the data say that something's not a problem, so that you're not investing a lot of resources in something that's not an issue. I remember like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, people were really concerned about nitrates coming off the farms. And so there was like a lot of energy around that and some resources going into that. And we're seeing that that's not a place to put resources really. So I think that that's important to notice is like what it rules out or doesn't say to put your resources into. The other thing that I think First Flush can be valuable for is contextualizing, because I think sometimes people think like, the coast is going to hell in a handbasket. Look at all these water quality concerns. But when you look at other areas, like, is this really different from other areas? But then more to your point, what First Flush data provides is a sense of where to look further. So for example, when you see big spikes, we can then go talk to those landowners or land managers and say, hey, we're seeing this thing, what's going on, and see what's going on with their land management. These data could be helpful if there was a leak somewhere in a pipe. These data can show trends that things are getting better. So we use them all the time to inform where there are priorities, and also where there's not. So like when the Regional Water Quality Control Board was developing the TMDL for the harbor, this helped ground truth that. So you're regulating based on, the best available science, which they did science as well, of course, those kinds of things. But yeah, there's a lot that's moving forward with technical assistance to people, policy, et cetera.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the board? Seeing none. I have one question, and that is there's been some pretty wild swings. And looking at the time chart with all of those marks on it, all of those findings, it looks like it is not unusual to have major swings in this kind of thing. So I'm really curious if this is more the norm for other places that do this first flush. I was particularly interested in the Montera Creek data because MWSD has been working on the pump station there for quite a while and doing construction there, so that may or may not have had some effect. But I'm just curious about the normal, what the normal variability is.
I'll take a stab at this for a second, Clifton, and then ask you to jump in as well. I think that is part of the value of having a long-term data set, is that you can have a spike. Something can happen that has a spike at a particular time, and is it an ongoing issue or is it not? So that's one of the things that's super valuable. And often you'll see these spikes or the dips as fluctuations within a trend. And they all invite different kinds of, solutions. And if there was construction, Clifton can speak to this as well. Certainly that could have been what happened then. But typically, you would do a different kind of monitoring to follow up and see, exactly what the source is while it's going on. Sorry, Clifton, go ahead. I'll let you add more to that.
No, I think that is a good answer. And I guess I'll add, something that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation is like, it really is this snapshot. And so, having it just be one time a year, especially when the storms, the first flush each year might be like a different intensity. So it might be kind of covering more land area or representing more land area of water that had been flushed if it was a really, really big first flush versus one that might have been a little smaller. And I think that kind of variability is going to be expected. And so, when we talk, especially if I'm going year over year, I try to not say, oh, it increased between 2013, 2014. We're just seeing higher levels. There's a chance that, those ranges throughout the year show a lot more variability than what we're just seeing in this one snapshot. So I think in that sense, the First Flush program really helps us identify if something shows up in a big way, we can see it. And then we can track it over the coming years to see, okay, was this a one-time thing? Or is this something that's, starting to show getting worse over time? Or it could even be getting better over time. I think I had a decreasing trend. I'm starting to do some more advanced stats on some of these, and I don't have things that are super conclusive to report, but I did see in sort of in a preliminary way, a decreasing trend from 2015 to 2024 at our Capistrano outfall site for copper. So, that's an example of something where we do see it kind of going up and down, but the overall trend over the last 10 years is decreasing. So there is a lot of value in it, but yeah, when we see a big spike, especially with this program, we try to not get too concerned right away because, there's so many different things that could be happening in that one day that might cause something to spike. And so we're really looking at it over time.
But we also, if we do see a spike, we might use that as an opportunity to reach out to a landowner or a land manager and see if there's something going on. So there might, like if we see a spike, it's not like we just wait to see what happens over 5 years.
Yeah.
If we see something going on, we typically will, try to pursue some solutions or get some information. And I think also because it guides priorities, certainly for our programs and maybe for others as well. Hopefully some of the work that we've done results in some of these trends.
Thank you. This is very valuable. Greg, you have a question?
I have two. So I'm the author of the Midcoast Community Council Stormwater Report. We did not focus extensively on water quality, however, but there is a lot of unmanaged stormwater in our area. Now, normally the solution to pollution is dilution, but on January 1st, 2023, Pillarcitos Creek had a 200-fold increase in its flows. I can't speak to the increase of the flows in Montera Creek and the other areas, but that was a severe storm. So I wonder what date were you sampling all those sites? That's my first question.
Yeah, so 2023, you said?
Yeah, January 1st, 2023 was a huge storm.
Yeah, and I've been out there on Pillarcitos Creek when you have a big flash flood coming. It's intense when it rushes down there. So I've seen that. In 2023, we sampled on November 15th. So that was quite a bit later. Going back to 2022, that year's first flush was sampled on September 21st. So 2022 had a little bit of an earlier first flush than we typically see. Normally it's October, November. And 2022, we had an earlier first flush than typical.
Okay, so that reporting date, those graphs had nothing to do with the January 1st storm.
Correct.
There was, however, a major storm on October, I'm going to say 31st, 2022, just so you know, that was another major storm. So okay. I'm going to pick on Dr. Penrose's question, which is, so what? We bad? Do we need to do something in the area of stormwater management? It seems like our indices are bad in most places most of the time. And in particular in Montera Creek, I'm wondering, are we not chartering some more frequent follow-up, weekly or monthly for a period of time because those levels were so high? That's our water supply up there. And I'm curious, so what? And maybe that's not your question to answer, but those are the questions. Do we need to do something in stormwater management, and why aren't we sampling more regularly where we have the extreme peaks there?
Yeah, I mean, it takes resources to do the monitoring. I think we'd love to do more. I think we would be really interested in the kind of monitoring that follows up on when we see something of interest. The kind of monitoring that helps you identify the source, the reason. First flush is designed to monitor the outfall, what's happening, what's coming out of the pipes or the creeks that's going into the ocean. We would welcome the opportunity sometimes to do some of the monitoring that goes to the source rather than the outfall.
Yeah, and I think, it really, all of these results do present an opportunity. It's sort of like this is our tool for identification. And then, your question is valid. What are we doing about it? And I think that we are happy to, work with the community in different ways to engage on these issues. And I think with this report, we're sort of just sharing this information out. But there are many opportunities that we would be happy to partner with folks on. And
have in the past.
Are these slides? Are these slides on the website or included in the agenda packet? I missed it if they are.
They are not. Our full report is included in the agenda package, so that has all of the same figures in it that were presented today.
And the PowerPoint slides presumably will be included in the minutes. We'll send them to Kishan and they can be included in the minutes. They're also on the RCD's website because we did largely the same presentation at our last board meeting, so it'll be there as well.
Good.
And Greg, we could also do this to MCC. We could do the same
Be
presentation.
happy to.
But I think that people might find a lot of value in the webinar that we're going to be doing that brings together more data sets in addition to First Flush.
And this is on May 10th.
Oh, yeah, we would.
May 10th.
Where is that? How
It's
can you
a-
publicize that?
It's in partnership with Coastside Land Trust. You could go to their website. There's a embarrassingly large sign on Highway 92 advertising it.
Yeah, and I think with that webinar presentation, as Kelly said, we'll be kind of touching on some of the interactions between this program and some of the other water quality work that we're doing. And so I think, we're pulling it all together, but, that is also a larger effort that we're planning to get to this year, which is, as she mentioned, kind of really diving in and looking at everything we have and trying to sort of piece it all together. So, we won't be getting super nitty gritty on all of the details in that webinar, but I think we will have prepared a nice overview of everything that we've done in that sphere.
Right now, largely what people know about water quality is driven by different objectives. There's a regulatory requirement, a reporting requirement for different actors, et cetera. And there hasn't been anyone that has stitched it all together to kind of try to get at the big picture and what does it mean for the community generally. And that's what we want to do.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this to the MCC as well, which is a somewhat different audience than this one. And I look forward to your May 10th Zoom. That will be fun. Moving on then to item C on our regular business. Adopt resolution number 02-2025, adopting the Sewer Authority Midcoastside Contract Collection Services budget for the fiscal year 25-26.
Okay, so the collection services budget as well as the general budget, which will be part of the next item, was discussed at the SAM meeting earlier. That was way back, I believe, on March 24th, and we decided that we send it to the member agencies for discussion at their end and approval. And I'm glad to inform that all the three member agencies have approved the budget and have adopted the resolution. And so my special thanks actually goes first to my finance team, George, Callie, and Peter. And of course, with the support of the finance committee, the board, and the member agency managers for doing this at such a record pace. Never in the past, I think we've been able to get the budget adopted way back in April for something that's effective July 1. So that's really great. But most of you would have seen the presentation either at your board or at SAM earlier, but I'll quickly run through some of the slides to recap. I would like to share my screen. No, not very good. That's Callie's computer.
Oh.
Okay. So the way we work is collections is actually a contract. It's a contract budget, basically contract collection services budget, which operates on cleaning the minimum of 50% of lines on an annual basis at all the three member agencies. The cost percent allocation is based on the lines that we clean and the lift stations that are maintained by SAM. And this was actually discussed with the member agency managers a couple of years back, and we arrived at this. So we haven't changed this for quite some time. So the cost percent allocation is Half Moon Bay pays for 34% of the entire cost. GCSD is 28%, MWSD is 38%. To give you an idea, Half Moon Bay has got 3 lift stations that we maintain. GCSD has got 1 lift station that we maintain, and MWSD has got 13 lift stations that we maintain. So there are 4 staff members in the collections group. 3 of them are involved in the day-to-day pipe cleaning, flushing, and attending to several callouts, while 1 person is in the maintenance part of the collections group. Now, we have considered all applicable merit step increases as 1 step increase, and we've added 5% CPI to all non-personal costs. And based on the previous budget and audited, we had some amount of money remaining. So just like what we've done in the past, that is about 76,305. We've taken that amount and reduced the overall collection budgeted expenses for the member agencies. So there's an overall increase to payroll costs of about 30,745, and finally an overall 9% increase in the budget. Now, these are basically due to the payroll expenses going up, miscellaneous expenses, slight increase, supplies getting increased, and insurance premiums getting increased. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 under collection maintenance workers and 1 maintenance mechanic, so a total of 4 staffs. So this is just give you an idea about the percentages of the various expenses. This is already there in the packet. This is just to drive home the point. You have the wages and benefits increased by about 9%. This is based on the memorandum of understanding, which we had with Local 39, which the board approved last year, which is effective from July 1 of 2025. Those are only the wages, but other benefits have already started, and that was from February 1st, 2025. So each agency pays according to the percentage that I mentioned. So Half Moon Bay's share is about 233,665. GCSD is 192,431, and MWSD is about 261,155. So there's an increase from last year's budget, about 9 to 10% in each agency. To give you an idea about of the linear feet that has been cleaned and the callouts that has been attended by our staff. They attend these callouts on a regular basis, as well as emergency callouts on weekdays, after office hours, weekends. They're always there when there is a call. So Half Moon Bay had about 32 callouts. GCSD had about 17, and Montana had about 67 callouts. That's it. Any questions? Me and my staff are here to answer any questions.
We love the collections crew. They do a great job.
Are there any more comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, how about the public? Okay, I see none. Can we have a motion and a second?
I move approval of the resolution adopting the Sewer Authority Midcoastside Contract Collection Services budget for fiscal 2025-26.
And a second?
I'll second.
Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Director Negangast,
Yes.
Director Bowles,
Yes.
Director Boyd,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the last item in regular business, adopt resolution number 03-2025, adopting the Sewer Authority Midcoastside general budget for the fiscal year 2025-26 and adopting the position control list. And we'll need 2 separate motions for those. So.
Yeah, let me just end the show. Sorry. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, the collections budget and the general budget both were adopted at all the 3 member agencies. And just give you a quick overview of the general budget. This has been discussed at SAM as well as the member agencies. So again, here the all authorized positions are included in the budget. There's no increase in staff. Right now we have one vacancy, but that is getting filled up, and that was already authorized in the last year's budget. So there's no increase in staff. All merit step increases are at one step, and with the adoption of the MOU with Local 39, personal costs have been budgeted based on expectations for next year. The main chunk is the infrastructure budget, which has been increased by about 645,000 from last year's budget amount. This is based on the 5-year CIP, which was adopted by SAM board last year, and this is mainly due to the sewer force main in Montera. We can come to that in my next slides, please. So the wages and benefits, there is an increase by about 6%. Legal, engineering, professional services has decreased by about 14%. Like I mentioned in the previous board meeting, I'll repeat it again. The decrease is because earlier we had ERF related expenses for general counsel, plus we had also envisaged a good amount of time required for negotiating with Local 39. Thanks to our special counsel and Local 39 members, we were able to wrap up the meetings, the agreements and the meetings much earlier, so we didn't have to spend much time. And the MOU has been signed for the next 5 years, so we don't intend incurring any more costs in the next fiscal year. So that's why there's a decrease in the legal costs. Then we have the all other expenses is 3%. Total operating budget less infrastructure is 1%. So the infrastructure is a huge jump, about 18%. That is 3,645,000 set aside for infrastructure, out of which 3.1 is 2.5 is for the sewer force main in Montera. Then we have 100,000 set aside for the installation of the boiler. We have 2 boilers at SAM, and the equipments have already been approved in the previous year's budget, so we bought those. They are in the pipeline. We should be getting one this month, and we should be getting one a couple of months from now. But the installation cost is what we would require, about 100,000. So that's the additional, plus about 35,000 for a truck which needs to be replaced, which has been operating since 2004. We'd like to replace that, and that's why it's the additional amount besides the sewer force main in Montero. So this is again expenses by category. These are already available in your packet. I don't want to repeat it again. So there's a total staff about 13 only on the general budget. So we have 13 plus 4 from collections. So we have a total of 17 staff members at SAM, which includes the general manager who's on a contract basis. So all employees scheduled for step increase, and just to let you all know, we added another step in the latest MOU starting July 1, 2025. Earlier, we had only step 7, and most of our staff had maxed out to step 7. So we added another step, which is step 8. So that step 8 is going to kick in from July 1st of 2025. And moving from one step to other step is not automatic. It's purely based on performance and performance evaluation done. And by and large, most of my staff members are do an excellent job. So there's no way that nobody would get another step. But just to let you guys know, it's always that. It's not taken for granted, but they perform very well. So this is an operating budget key changes of about 52,000. The sum of operating general budget changes. These have been explained in detail in the packet which has been provided to you. So the major vendors in the legal and professional services are basically Calcon Systems, who does our electrical maintenance. Recently, we extended their contract in one of our board meetings for the next 5 years. So that has been going on. They do a great job in maintaining all the electrical requirements for SAM, be it the treatment plant or be it the pump stations that we own. Then we have General Counsel, which is Ratan Tucker, Employment Counsel, Special Counsel, which is Boshe Law, Accounting Services, which is RV Accounting and Advisory, who help us with our budget and audit. Then we sub out our IT services to Precision IT Consulting. Then we have equipment maintenance being done by Koffler Electrical, primarily take care of winding of all our electrical equipments. If any there's a breakdown in motor, then we just go over to them. They are across the bay, and then we get we get the motor there. They rewind the motor and then send it back to us. So we are regularly in touch with them. Then we have Peninsula Pump and Equipment, who does our pump maintenance for all our pump stations. We have Integral Consulting, who did the plant studies for us. There's a talk of doing further extending some of our modeling work, which was brought to the board last year. In case there's a requirement, we've set aside some money there. And then we have Alpha Analytical Labs, who does our regular testing, which is required as per regional water quality control board requirements. Then we have a CalPERS rate. Classic members, there's an increase by about 13.38% employer rate, and the PEPRA is about 8.27. We have the unfunded liability, which has increased from 312,821 to 368,910. The unfunded liability is disclosed by CalPERS pretty much at the beginning of July. So we have to give an estimate, and we are hopeful that this time will be pretty close to the estimate. These assessments are for each agency is primarily based on the flow that has happened during the last calendar year, 2023. So Half Moon Bay was at 60.24%, MWSD was 20.92%, and GCSD was 18.84%. So based on that, the assessments have been derived. So Half Moon Bay has an increase of about 6%, GCSD is about 6%, and Montara is about 11%. So there's total overall increase by about 7%. So this is the historical flow allocations since 2015. As you see, there's been a slight increase in Montara, and there's a slight decrease in Half Moon Bay, and GCSD also there's a slight decrease. This is the division budgets by fiscal year. This is already in the packet, so I don't want to go through it in detail. As I explained to you, infrastructure has gone up by 18%, primarily because of the additional requirement for the sewer force main in Montara. We are required to complete the construction by June 2027. So it will be done in various phases. That's why this money is being laid out in this budget. That's it. If there are any questions, and my staff are here to answer.
Didn't see any questions from the board.
Well, we've been through it twice, once before it went into the agencies and then at our various agencies. So I feel very comfortable that we're all pretty up to speed on these budgets. So I'm happy to
Excellent.
make
Do I see any questions from the public or comments? Seeing none, we need two motions, one for the Sewer Authority Midcoastside general budget and one for the position control list. So we have
moved.
motions and seconds.
So moved.
Do we need two separate ones, Jeremy, or can they be both?
You know, you can do it. I mean, you can do it either way. It's probably cleaner if you take them separately.
Okay, so your motion is for the Sewer Authority Midcoastside general budget, and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wanda. Roll call vote, please.
Director Negengast?
I have a prepared statement I'd like to read as part of my vote. I'm voting in support to approve the resolution adopting the SAM general budget for fiscal year 2025-26. However, please have the minutes reflect that Half Moon Bay's vote is under protest consistent with the April 15, 2025 resolution by which the Half Moon Bay City Council approved SAM's budget, and that any HMV funding of this and other IPS-related projects is made under protest and with the understanding that costs spent by the city will be refunded to the city should it prevail in its suit. This protest also reflects the city's ongoing concerns with discrepancies in SAM's methodology for calculating flow distribution, which materially impacts cost allocation.
Thank you. And let's,
We're continuing with the vote, right?
we will continue with the vote.
Director Bowles?
Aye.
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Penrose.
I will be repeating the same statement as Director Nottingham said, and voting in support of staff's recommendation to approve item 4D, the resolution adopting the SAM general budget for fiscal year 2025-26. However, please have the minutes reflect that Half Moon Bay's vote is under protest, consistent with April 15, 2025 resolution by which the City Council approved SAM's budget, and that any Half Moon Bay funding of this and other RPS-related projects is made under protest, and with the understanding that costs spent by the city will be refunded to the city should it prevail in its suit. This protest also reflects the city's ongoing concerns with discrepancies in SAM's methodology for calculating flow distribution, which materially impacts cost allocations.
Thank you. And that was an aye with the caveat.
I'm voting in support.
Yes. Barbara?
Director Wright,
Yes.
Director Slater.
Yes. And let's have a motion to adopt the position
They're
controller.
actually rolled up in the same resolution.
Yeah, they're all of this.
Oh, they are. Okay.
If I might, Catherine? Comment?
One comment? Yeah.
I think the expression of the ongoing concern is actually somewhat new. And I would respectfully request the city give us something concrete, preferably in writing, about the nature and specifics of the concern about the methodology of the data collection. Hand waving is really not going to suffice on something if we're going to criticize a methodology.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
And I gotta say, the language is obviously crafted by someone for a purpose, but this is kind of new information, and to position it as an ongoing concern doesn't reflect the kind of cordiality that I hope that we can achieve here.
Thank you. Let's move on to the general manager's report.
Well, wait, did we do the position control list? For the same resolution, I mean,
Yeah,
we had to be clear that everyone agrees that they intended to vote for the position control list as well. As long as we establish that, then we're fine.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone want a
Anybody?
second vote?
Okay,
Well,
then just make sure the minutes reflect it's for both. We'll be fine.
I'm looking for any objection to objecting to adopting the position controller.
As part of the resolution,
That isn't what I said.
Yeah,
but it is in the resolution.
I'm not going to argue.
It's how the resolution is presented in the packet. So if we're voting
yes.
on the resolution, that's the thing that we're voting.
Yes. Moving on to the general manager's report for March 2025.
okay, let me share my screen. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. Okay, we had a spill, and I'd like to give a little bit detail about the spill which occurred in the sewer force main in Montero. This happened on April 22nd. Wanted to give a little more information about this. The information was received of the leak at Ithildor and Highway 1. We received this information on April 22nd at 3:49 p.m. Possibly there was a leakage since 11 a.m., but we got the information only around 3:49. So immediately SAM's staff rushed to the site, and the operator arrived at the site at about 4:05 p.m. At that quick, we were to attend to the leak. We confirmed that it was a sewer leak because it was apprehensive whether it was a sewer or water leak earlier, but our staff member confirmed that it was a sewer leak, and we had to wait for USAs to be done because underground service alert was required because there were fiber optic cables in that area. We just couldn't go and jump onto it and start digging the pipe. So we had to get those done by USA. But we observed that there was a hole in the force main that created actually a hole in the ground. So what happened was all the sewer was actually going in the ground, then it would rise up and then get sucked into the pipe. Very little would actually come out of the hole. So only when the pumps kicked in, a little escaped from the dirt hole, but a large part went back into the force main. So that way, it was not a huge spill. As it was getting a little bit dark that day, we were waiting for USAs. We felt that it was not safe to start digging. Plus, it was not a large spill, so we thought we should push it to the next day. And sure enough, we were right. There was no problem at all. We came back the next day, started excavating at 8:30 a.m. with our contractor, Henry Brothers, and we completed it at about 1:45 in the afternoon. So the spill was determined to be category 3, and we estimated that the spill
The
was about,
smallest, right?
yeah, it's true.
The smallest of the three of the type of spills.
There's actually 4 spills that regulatory agencies have set up now. There used to only be 3, and yes, so
Anything less than 1,000 gallons, if it's not gone to the creek or
Is the smallest.
smallest,
Yes.
it is category
Just
3.
wanted to verify that.
So the pipe had a hole on the top located downstream of the well connection. So we had to replace about 13 and a half feet of the pipe. And then a new section, this is the new section, which is connected to the existing ductile iron pipe using 2 couplings. Then further upstream was a small hole at approximately 26 inches from the end of the replaced section. So there we had to install a clamp, and we successfully sealed it, put a circle clamp on it, and show you some pictures in the next slides. So this is the hole on the pipe. Check out. We have the pipe here at SAM. If anybody wants to have a look at it during daytime, they can come and take a look at the pipe. So this is the section which is in blue in color. That is the one which was replaced completely, about 13 and a half feet. You see the clamps, the C clamp, the shining surface. So that's the one which is clamped. So it appears that the failure of the pipe is due to corrosion, especially since holes were detected on the top. Because the corrosion holes on the top are usually because of hydrogen sulfide gas accumulating. And when this hydrogen sulfide gets in touch with moisture, then it turns into sulfuric acid. So the sulfuric acid is what which starts to eat the pipe from inside, basically. So whenever you see a hole on the top, then it's for sure corrosion. So we have already taken action to replace the entire sewer force main. The board has given approval. We've selected the contractor. It's a progressive design build, and the design is in progress. Construction is to commence in mid-2026 and will be completed by June 2027 in compliance with the consent decree, which we have signed up with ERF. The detailed status of design will be presented in the next meeting. There will be an agenda item in the next meeting, giving you a detailed report of the progressive design build. And henceforth, after the detailed meeting, every meeting I'll give you a status update of the progressive design build, where we are, whether anything is happening on it or what has happened. A couple of permits have been taken, so potholes, surveys have been done, but you'll get more in detail at the next meeting. And after that, at every SAM board meeting, I'll be giving an update.
Good. Do we have any questions from the board? I have a question.
Yes.
So there, with this replacement pipe that we're going to be putting in, there won't be corrosion by these various acids and biological byproduct in sewer wastewater. But we'll be looking for a whole new set of problems. That's my assumption.
Yeah, it'll be material will be HDPE. So this is the same thing which we have replaced other places, which is in Granada area, the force main. The entire length, you change it to HDPE. Yes, that is the best available product right now at a good cost for us.
And no problems.
No problem. Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know, and I'm glad we made that clear. Attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 things. One, and this is, I'm going to do this in open session because I think it is appropriate. It's the consent decree with ERF is, a public document. So I'm just going to keep it pretty general here. There are certain from the original consent decree back from 2019. There's certain requirements with regard to correspondence with the Regional Water Quality Control Board that are supposed to be provided to ERF within a certain amount of time. I have now provided those to ERF. As Kishan just informed the board, not a big event here, a small spill, but nevertheless, we're still required to report that. So we did so. Also, for the last amendment to the consent decree, there's a requirement during April of each year until the main at Montera, Force Main at Montera is completed and replaced. We're required every April to provide an update during the budgeting process to our ERF. And so I was able to provide the agenda packet from tonight, which contained the approvals of all 3-member agencies. So I think it's a good news story. Things are moving along, and no indications that we're going to have any problems making the pertinent deadlines. So that's my report with regard to reporting to ERF. I'll let the board know at a future date if I get any input. And then the other thing is I haven't been to Sam in about a year and a half now. So I'm actually going to be in Monterey around May 12th. So I talked to Kishan about it. So for those of you who've been dying to meet me in person, I know that's probably all of you who are new on the board. I will actually be there in person on the 12th. And so I can be available all day if anybody wants to meet with me for any particular reason. I can make myself available, and if nobody wants to, I'll just, I'll do other work. So anyway, just want to let everybody know that that's the case, and look forward to meeting you, those of you who I haven't met yet, on the 12th.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director's reports. Seeing none. Topics for future board consideration. We have an attachment on that. Does anyone wish to add anything to it? Well, let's take a brief break then, and then we will convene in closed session.
Yeah. Give us a few minutes to set up the owl, and then yeah.
Right. So it's 5 to 10 minutes, somewhere 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep. Okay.
I'm only getting about